King's Prophet. Chapter 7. Haunted. 13 years ago. Stolas did a lot of reading. He did, after all, have a lot of free time that he always used in one of three ways: via, plants, or books. So when neither child nor garden needed tending to, he always fell upon his books. All Hallows' Eve was an ancient human celebration, the one day a year that the demons may walk freely among the living world. And yet, in modern times it had become a holiday for children, to dress up and walk about collecting sweets from strangers. Imagine that. Sweets from strangers. And they wore costumes. So, Stolas had thought, since Stella was throwing her annual All Hallows Ball, he would take Octavia up to the living world to experience Halloween with the human children. Stolas, being Stolas, decided that he would also dress up. After all, how could he possibly miss an opportunity to craft fabulous father-daughter costumes for himself and Via? How adorable! She'd wanted to be an Earth bumblebee, so Stolas decided he would be a Venus flytrap. Though he did go with the human world variant, so as not to attract any unwanted attention. They arrived on the surface in the quiet of a field outside a quaint town in North America. Stolas did so enjoy the autumn breeze of the season in the northern parts of the earth. Octavia's eyes were alight with wonderment as she took in her surroundings. The trees all sported golden, red, and orange leaves with piles of browning ones on the ground that crunched delightfully under their talons. Just past the field there were homes decorated with strings of lights along the eaves and pumpkins with intricate facial carvings aglow from within sitting on the stoops. Some houses had even tried for a scarier ambiance, showcasing graveyards or monsters in the grass, but none seemed to bother the young owlet, who simply looked on in fascination. "All right, Via, you remember what we talked about, yes? Stay right by my side. I don't want you wandering off in this unfamiliar place." She nodded, her face set in a serious expression, eyebrows drawn together. "Yes, Daddy, I'll stay right with you." He beamed at her and patted her gently on the head, making the little antennae on her headband bounce. They began to walk from house to house, other children running past them with screams of delight, but Via never left his side. She was acting a bit more timidly than Stolas had expected, but her smile had yet to waver. As they rounded the street corner to the next row of houses, he walked right into the back of a shorter man who stumbled forward only to catch himself with his cane. Stolas stuttered out an apology as he reached out to steady the man. He was wearing a duck costume? No, a rubber duck, not to mention that it was humorously oversized on the smaller man. As he turned, Stolas could see that his face was visible through the bright orange bill of the duck. Your Majesty?" Stolas would have spat out his drink if he'd had one. His eyes widened and his beak fell open. "Stolas! Oh my me! What a wonderful surprise!" The literal king of hell was standing before him, inside a giant rubber duck. And all Stolas could do was blink dumbly at him. "And you must be Princess Octavia." Lucifer leaned down to stick out a hand toward Via, who shrank back behind Stolas's leg. "Aw, are we shy? Well, that's all right. We've met before, you know. Then again, you were still in your egg, so you might not remember." Stolas shook his head to clear the daze. Yes, this is my Via, but tonight she's Princess Bia. Say hello to King Lucifer, Via." She poked her head out from behind his leg, the little honeypot candy basket bumping against him. She wrung her hands for a moment before she let out in a soft coo, "Hello." A cheerful voice cut in from a few feet away. "You're a bee!" A young girl popped out from behind Lucifer. She was probably around 8 or 9. Her bright blonde hair was tied up with teal and pink ribbons, and she was wearing all pink with a heart cut out on the shirt. She was wearing a headband much like Via's, but instead of antennae, hers were what looked like hellhound ears on the top. "This is my daughter. Charge her." Lucifer was cut off with a cutting glare from the princess. "Charlie." Stolas smiled and offered the princess a small bow before looking down to Via. "Octavia, can you wave to Princess Charlie?" Via didn't respond. Instead, she huddled close to him, only peering at the other princess from behind her hiding place. "Look, we're both bees!" Charlie exclaimed. "I'm Queen Beelzebub, and you're a bumblebee, so I can be Queen Bee, and you can be Princess Bee." Via smiled slightly and let out a tiny giggle, but stayed where she was. "Come on, you can trick-or-treat with me. I know all the best houses to go to. My dad and I do this every year." Charlie walked purposefully forward and took Via's hand in her own, pulling her along, immediately asking if she'd helped make the wings on her costume. She had. "I do apologize if we've interrupted your tradition." Lucifer shook his head and gestured for Stolas to come along as they walked after the girls just a few feet behind. "Not at all. Lilith does not enjoy coming up to Earth much these days, but Charlie just loves to see all the humans dressed up. I didn't know that you and Octavia also partook." "Well, we didn't. This is our first year trying it. Stella likes to throw an elaborate All Hallows' Eve gala, so I thought I might get Via out of the palace. It really is no place for a child." For the next few hours they followed behind the girls, who collected a seemingly endless amount of candy before Stolas decided that the intervals between Via's yawns were becoming far too short to go any further, and they prepared to take their leave. "Do bring Octavia by the castle soon. I'll give you both the official duck tour," Lucifer shouted after them. "Dad, you're so embarrassing." Stolas waved goodbye once more before he scooped Via up into his arms and opened a portal back home. As he stepped through the portal, his arms were suddenly empty, his costume gone, replaced by a simple black shirt, and in his hand was the honey pot that had once held her candy. Empty. No, not empty. Filling up from the bottom. He looked closer, but it was too dark. Where was all the lights? He looked around only to find himself in a dark void. Looking back down at the honey pot, it was almost overflowing now. He reached in to examine what exactly it was filling with. Whatever it was freezing. It felt almost like icy water, but thicker, and as he pulled his hand out, it was coated in viscous black blood. He dropped the candy basket in shock, and it vanished into the void. "No!" He scrambled, searching frantically for it. He needed it back. It was all he had left of her. He felt around in the pitch black, but there was nothing, no floor, no walls, nothing to reach for, nothing to search, just empty and cold. "Octavia!" he screamed. "Come back!" His voice didn't echo. It didn't even seem to be carrying into the void. There was nothing for the sound to bounce off of at all. Something cold hit his forehead, and he reached up to touch it, only to find another drop of black blood. He felt it again on his shoulder, then his arms. It was raining. Raining pitch-black, ice-cold blood. Something in him knew it was hers. It was her blood, pouring all over him, freezing him from the outside in. Octavia sat up with a start. She was sweating, even with the cold, and her head feathers had matted to her scalp. She could feel the sweat almost freezing against her skin as she pulled herself out of bed, shivering violently. How strange. She'd never had a dream like that before. She hadn't even been in it. She'd been seeing it through his eyes, feeling his feelings. No, No, she wasn't. That was just how she wanted him to feel about her. It wasn't how he actually felt. She was sure. She was just projecting. Right? She hated how cold it was in the palace now. She hated how the ice caused the halls of their oversized house, to echo even more than before. This place felt hollow without him. She shivered as she walked down the hall. Her mother had taken her phone away, so even the thought of answering her father's many, many calls and texts was impossible now. Why was he even still calling anyway? He had his new life now, his new, better family, and she had ice. Plus, she'd already told him no, and she wanted to stick by that. Didn't she? A loud crunching drew her attention to the floor beneath her boot. A dried-up leaf crumbled to bits under her talon as she lifted it off and looked to her left. A whole wall of his plants sat shriveled up and dead against the wall, clearly having been shoved into this alcove to be ignored. She shook her head and continued down the hall, aiming for her own bedroom, when she passed her uncle and mother in one of the sitting rooms, laughing obnoxiously. It had been a month now since he threw her away for him. She shut the door to her bedroom softly and sat down heavily on her bed. The stars and constellations above her bed gleamed with magic. Why does he hate her more than he loves me? She grabbed her guitar and laid back to watch the stars. Did he ever care about us? Why was she so stuck on him today? She stood back from her bed, guitar still clutched tightly in her fist, as she made her way to her father's old room. She hesitated before she turned the doorknob. What would she find on the other side? Would it be the way he left it, frozen in time? Had the servants cleaned? Would it be dusty? She shook her head and pushed it open before she could talk herself out of it. All the furniture had been covered with white sheets, the books removed from the shelves and stored in boxes stacked against the walls. The paintings from her childhood had been taken down, turned away, and leant up against the couch on the ground. The door to his closet was slightly ajar, and she walked toward it without conscious thought. She'd been dreaming of him. Not every night, but certainly more often than she would like to be. Normally she dreamt of their time together, memories of when she was young, happy, and carefree. For a while at least, until it twisted into something else, something dark. The closet was a mess of boxes and junk. She began sifting through it, not knowing exactly what she was even looking for. A hint, a sign, something to tell her it hadn't all been lies, not the whole time. It couldn't have been. There had to have been a point where he had loved her, and a point when he had stopped. She reached for a drawing that sat atop a large pile of papers. They all looked worn, yellowing with age, but there were no tears or wrinkles. It was of the two of them. She had drawn it when she was young, maybe 4 or 5, after they'd gone trick-or-treating in the human world. Her father in his stupid little planter pot with that stupid flower around his head, and her in the round black and yellow bee costume they'd made together. They'd been happy then, right? She smiled as she placed it carefully to the side and reached for the next item in the pile, taking a seat on the floor. There were cards, more drawings, little clay statues of she had no idea what. He'd kept it all, safe and sound. Everything she'd ever given him was here. She spotted a Polaroid at the bottom of the pile and picked it up to examine it. She'd been older here, maybe 6 or 7. The white had begun to fade from her feathers by then, making her look more and more like him and less like her mother. And her mother had never let her forget it. It was captioned, "Star Observation." They looked so happy together. Had this been a lie too? She reached for her guitar, the one that he had gifted to her, and settled it in her lap. Bringing her hands to the strings, she sucked in a shaky breath and hesitated for only a moment before strumming out a chord. Your box is packed up on the bed. Your words are in my head. You're telling me it will be okay. You'll remember what you said. Or was it just another lie? The cluttered closet around her faded away and a new world formed. And suddenly she could see him. He was right there before her, bright and ethereal, and made up entirely of the night sky, full of stars and glowing with starlight. He reached for her, and she raised a hand to rest it against his, until he disintegrated into magical nothingness. Shadows erupted from behind her, swallowing her whole. She blinked and was in a familiar hallway, filled with her memories. A movement caught her eye, the beating of black wings. She turned and reached and ran. This place that used to be your home, will you call me on the phone? Will I hear your voice in the middle of the night when I turn off the lights? All around her were photos of her life, her childhood, and seeing her father in those memories, looking so happy, had always brought her comfort and security. But now when she looked, she saw with older eyes and could follow the progression of time. Her father's eyes growing weary and haunted, sadness overtaking him. It overwhelmed her, the pain in her chest overflowing just like the tears in her eyes, and she felt small, so small as he vanished, taking the light with him. Are you just another ghost? Oh. She felt the warmth of light on her back, and there he was, all filled with stars once more. He smiled as he turned, but it wasn't for her. No, it was for him. Still she reached out, but they both slipped away. She was always left behind, chasing after a ghost who only had eyes for him, following him and leaving her behind just like she always knew he would. How could you lie to my face? And did our time mean nothing to you? Were you bluffing all along? Yet she didn't give up. She continued to chase him. She couldn't lose him. Not yet. She wasn't ready. They were too fast. She couldn't keep up, and she tripped, sprawling on the marble floor. That you would be there to see yourself forgiven by me. She looked up to see he was black now. No more stars and blue night skies, just inky darkness and glowing red eyes. He offered her his hand, but the look on his face, cold, resentful, unrecognizable, and she smacked it away. If you thought that I'd take it, you were wrong. Oh, you were wrong. Her home began to crumble around her, cracks creeping up the walls and chunks falling down from pillars and ceiling, until all was dust and darkness, ashes floating through the air. The embered remains of her family coalesced into a ball of fire, an imploding star that blinded her, cracking her open, destroying everything. Comets rained down around her, burning her world to ash. The cracks all led to her, on the brink of an eruption, the destruction of her universe within her grasp. A single choice could mean the end of everything. And when you're gone, I will be okay. I will be okay, though I'll never be the same. And I'll know that I was right to doubt you. I'll grow without you, and you'll only know my name. A single teardrop fell from her sky, depositing the Polaroid of her and her dad gently into her hands, hers to keep or destroy. You always told me I'd be okay. Well, I'll be okay, though I'm not okay today. When she blinked, she was back in the closet, looking down once more at the photo in her lap. It was wet with tears now, as were all the other papers surrounding her. But my tears won't fall upon your shoulder. I'll just get older, and you'll only know my name. She sniffled and wiped at her eyes. Time to move on. She stood and headed toward the door, only to pause before she reached the handle. She looked down at the guitar in her fist, her eyes caught by the golden inscription on the back panel. It read, "Love, Dad." Her mouth trembled and she shook her head. Time to move on. So she turned back towards the closet wall and placed the guitar on the top shelf. Out of sight, out of mind. A purple bottle caught her eye, and she reached for it. Belphegor Hard Candy Happy Pills. The bottle had his name on it, and when she looked up she found a box full of them, some bottles empty, but others half full with a few pills rattling around inside. Happy pills. He needed happy pills to survive a life with her. But he didn't have them now. Did he need them? Was he suffering without them? Or was he happy now that he wasn't with her and didn't need them anymore? Only one way to find out. She held the bottle tightly in her fist as she made her way back to her own room, mind made up.